In the shadowed corridors of the human psyche, there lurks a figure we all recognize: the angry intellectual. He strides through the digital agora, podcasts, lecture halls, endless scrolls of the internet, cloaked in brilliance and eloquence. He wields the sword of science and reason with masterful precision. Yet, when the veil lifts to reveal ultimate meaning, when the whisper of God echoes in the void, his mask cracks. Disagreement turns to hostility. Doubt curdles into mockery. The notion of a creator is not debated as a philosophical enigma, but assaulted as a mortal affront. I have gazed into this abyss through the lens of depth psychology, seeking the archetypes that bind us. The hero's quest, the shadow's whisper, the wise old man's eternal gaze. From Carl Jung and Marie-Louise von Franz, we inherit the Puer Impius, the eternal child. Peter Pan, forever aloft, fleeing the gravity of maturity, the chains of structure and limit. But this archetype, profound as it is, leaves a void. It captures the stagnant soul, adrift in mundane evasion, the man lost in illusions at 40. Yet it fails to ensnare the triumphant rebel, the one waging war against the heavens themselves. Thus, I propose a shadow sibling, the Puer Impius, the impious eternal child. Not a mere insult of faith, but a clinical revelation, a pathology of the will, frozen in adolescent defiance before the cosmos. It is the soul that denies transcendence not through logic's cold blade, but through the ego's desperate grasp, preserving its illusory throne. What we term New Atheism is no modern revolution. It is an ancient tantrum echoing through the ages. To unveil this archetype, we must descend to its primordial root, the trauma of contingency. In philosophy's quiet chambers, contingency reveals our fragile thread. We exist not by necessity, but by grace. We hang upon unseen strings, oxygen's breath, gravity's embrace, the laws that weave reality. We are recipients, not originators. Gaze honestly upon the universe, the fine-tuning of stars, mathematics' uncanny precision, consciousness blooming from the void, and a terror awakens. This is a gift. The Logos, the sacred order, proclaims design, and design whispers of a designer. In the healthy soul, this awakens gratitude, humility, a communion with the source. But for the Puer Impius, it is wounds reopened, a narcissistic rupture. A cosmic father, the archetypal senex, dethrones the ego's fragile reign. No longer sovereign, the self becomes subject, accountable, judged. Jung spoke of inflation, the ego swelling to devour the self, the God image within. Here it culminates. The Puer Impius shuns not earthly bonds, but ontological ones. Impious, irreverent, defiant against the sacred weave. It is the adolescent in the father's manor, feasting on his bounty, yet scrawling manifestos of paternal non-existence. How does this shadow manifest? Through the Triad of Ontological Defiance, 3 veils that cloak the soul's arrest. First, the fantasy of randomness, which is fundamentally the denial of logos, the underlying rational order that structures the universe. Behold DNA's coded symphony, an intricate language of life that governs biological processes with precision, or physics' harmonious laws, which dictate the behavior of matter and energy in predictable ways. Yet the Puer Impius decrees them to be mere accident, the whim of chance without any guiding intelligence. This is not a genuine scientific conclusion derived from empirical evidence, but rather a psychological survival strategy. Randomness erases the possibility of authorship, dissolves any notion of authority, and creates a conceptual void where the ego can rule unchallenged. In such imagined chaos alone can the inflated self maintain its dominance, hallucinating a disordered void where, in truth, eternal order reigns supreme and undeniable. Second, cosmological dissociation, the Multiverse Complex, a defensive retreat into speculative infinities that dilutes the weight of our singular reality. Our age obsesses with infinite realms, simulations, and timelines without end, as seen in popular scientific theories and cultural narratives that posit countless parallel existences. This is the Puer Eternus, exalted to cosmic proportions, a state of provisional eternity where options remain forever unbound, allowing perpetual avoidance of commitment to any fixed truth. A singular cosmos, with its inherent design and implications, binds us to objective truth and inevitable judgment, demanding accountability for our choices within this one meaningful existence. But in the multiversal mists, a meta-neverland of endless possibilities, meaning evaporates, rendering all actions insignificant and absolving the self of responsibility. Peter Pan erects quantum walls against Captain Hook, the harbinger of time and reckoning, symbolizing how this complex serves as an intellectual fortress to shield the eternal child from the maturity required by a purposeful universe. Third, Narcissistic Auto-Aseity, the Stoic veil, a false claim to self-sufficiency that mirrors divine attributes but in a distorted human form. Aseity belongs exclusively to the divine, the quality of being self-existent and uncaused, independent of any external source. Yet the Puer Impius claims its shadow, pseudo-aseity, declaring, "In indifference's void, I forge my meaning from nothing," as if the self alone can generate value and purpose in an otherwise empty cosmos. Applauded in modern culture as empowerment and resilience, this stance is, in psychological terms, a form of mania, the ego frantically colonizing the abyss, filling the perceived absence of God with its own self-deification to avoid confronting its inherent dependence. Success in worldly terms masks the underlying wound, turning what appears as stoic achievement into worship disguised as resilience, where the individual elevates personal will above all else to evade the humility of creaturely existence. The rebuttal rises like a familiar specter. You believers are the children, the puer timidus, fearful fledglings crafting a sky father to banish the dark. This is Freud's echo, the classic critique of religion as mere wish fulfillment, a psychological crutch for those too afraid to face an uncaring reality. Yet we must apply sanity's true measure, reality testing, the fundamental alignment of the mind with the observable facts of existence. Align with what is evident, mathematics' unchanging truth that underpins all scientific discovery, logic's unyielding form that enables rational thought, mind's luminous arc that allows consciousness to perceive and reflect, and the cosmos's intelligible dance, where patterns and laws reveal coherence rather than caprice. Enter a library with shelves meticulously alphabetized. Who, in sound mind, infers an explosion and a random gale as the cause? The sane soul sees the librarian, the intentional organizer behind the order. The Puer Impius, however, conjures chaos against overwhelming evidence, fabricating disorder to sustain denial. We, the believers, embrace light's clarity, accepting the illuminating structure that demands response. They flee to ambiguity's embrace, inventing a void precisely to evade the author's penetrating gaze. Thus, it is not fear of the dark that drives faith, but rather the Puer Impius's terror of illumination, the blinding truth that exposes their rebellion. In myth's eternal tapestry, this archetype unfolds across timeless narratives, revealing the soul's perennial struggle with defiance and dependence. Consider the juvenile Prometheus, thieving fire from the gods in spite, scorning Olympus not out of heroic altruism, but petty rebellion against divine authority. This figure embodies the Puer Impius's hubris, stealing the spark of creation while refusing to acknowledge the greater order it implies, ultimately chaining himself to eternal suffering through unrepentant pride. Yet deepest of all is the Prodigal Son. Seizing his inheritance, the very fabric of existence, the spark of mind and life bestowed by the Father, then fleeing far from home, torching the path back in willful denial. Amid squandered gifts, he proclaims self-creation and the Father's oblivion, living off the bounty while insisting on independence, only to face the famine of his own making. Ingratitude, cosmic and profound, not a mere lapse in etiquette, but a soul's affliction that starves the spirit, isolating it in illusion until humility calls it back. Is redemption barred for such a soul? No, for maturation ever beckons, though thorns line the way, demanding courage to traverse the path of self-confrontation. Individuation, the Jungian journey toward wholeness, demands the surrender of inflation. Cease the map's blaze, the deliberate destruction of bridges to truth. Embrace the gift, being's unearned grace that sustains every moment, the guilt, ingratitude's lingering shadow that must be acknowledged and released, the giver, the eternal source from which all flows. In this surrender, the Puer Impius transcends its arrested state. It becomes the Filius Sapientiae, the son of wisdom, a grateful heir no longer adrift, but orbiting truth's radiant center with purpose. No longer a slave to ego's chains, but a liberated soul, free to create within the bounds of reality's gift. The universe reveals itself not as accident's whim, a chaotic happenstance devoid of meaning, but as home eternal, a purposeful dwelling crafted for relationship. Cease the pretense of authorship, the false claim to self-origination. Greet the architect with open arms and find wholeness in the embrace. Lucky for you, and for all who seek, we know this source as God, the boundless giver whose mercy awaits every returning child. If this dive into the Puer Impius archetype sparked something in you, whether it's agreement, pushback, or a fresh take, I want to hear it. Drop your critiques, opinions, and thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you have any topics you'd like me to explore. Let's keep the conversation going. Your insights could sharpen all of us. If it resonated, share this video far and wide. Pass it to a friend who might need that nudge toward growth. And hit subscribe for more explorations like this, unpacking the mind, body, and spirit with a focus on men's journeys, but open to everyone who wants to level up. We're all in this together. Thanks for watching.